in this tutorial we're going to talk about Dagger 2. Dagger 2 is one of the dependency injection framework mostly utilized in Android application. So actually Dagger 2 was adopted first on Android by developers community before Kotlin was introduced. So that's the reason why many Android application uses Dagger as a dependency injection framework. So Dagger was initially developed by Square, that is the Dagger version 1, and later on it was transitioned to Google with the Dagger 2 version. So we are going to cover in this chapter about the Dagger 2 version, which is adopted by Google. Okay. So actually it has the key functionality of Dagger 2 is injection dependencies grouped in modules, component used to generate dependency graphs, qualifiers, scopes, subcomponents, and many more. Okay, so annotations are the key elements, so you have to obviously import the annotation plugin like Kotlin Captor, and many types of there are three main types of annotations, which is provider annotated by module, consumers annotated by annotation inject, connector annotated by at the rate component, right? So this is the three main types, and these three main types we are gonna discuss is here. So the first like what we are gonna discuss is the type called consumer. Is like it's denoted by at the rate inject annotation is used to define a dependency. Okay, so consumer, it is used to define the dependency. Provider with the annotation of module is denoted by is responsible for providing an object, a dependent object that can be injected, right? And finally the connector with at the rate component, as you can see here, at the rate component annotated interface defines the connection between the provider and the consumer. Okay, so component pretty much defines the connection between provider and consumer. So and this is how you do it, right? The first thing is always just declare your necessary dependencies for Dagger, that is this one here. All right, and you also need to add your Kotlin Capture plugin, that is annotation processor plugin used by Room database and also used by Dagger 2. Okay, so what else, guys? And we have as you see that Dagger uses this inject Java X inject to identify the object that requires injection, right? There are multiple ways to inject dependency, but the recommended way are through constructor injection and field injection. So this is the constructor injection procedure, and this is a field injection. And what else, guys? Like providers you will find yourself in a situation where your application uses external dependencies, right? That means you cannot provide instances through the constructor injections, right, like we do here. So in this case situation, Dagger can provide the instance using provider annotation. You can use them to group the methods where instances are provided into modules and annotated with modules. Okay, that provides these dependencies. This provides class B dependencies, you know. I mean like the instance here. And finally the connectors are used also for interface or abstract class. So assuming we will have multiple modules, we can combine them into a graph of dependency that can be used across the application. Okay, like and Dagger offers the component annotation. This is usually used for the interface or an abstract class, as I told you earlier, that will be implemented by Dagger. Along with assembling the dependency graph, components also offer the functionality to add methods to inject dependency into certain object members. Okay, so in components you can specify provision methods that can return dependency provided in the modules. So that's it, guys. And we also have actually qualifiers. So you can use qualifiers if you want to provide multiple instance of the same class, right? So here you can see here multiple instance of the same class, like the class is the same instance, but it's like, I mean, it's the same object, it contains the same object, but it has a multiple instance. Okay, so it is just provided by, it's the qualifiers are used to just differentiate between this same instance object, right, by the name. Okay, and with the named annotation. And uh, okay, okay, so this is it. And what about the scopes? If you want to keep track to life cycle of your component and your dependency, you can use scopes. Okay, so there is also another important concept like scope. So this scope concept is used usually for if you want to keep track of the life cycle of your component and your dependencies. So you can use scopes, right? So Dagger offer a singleton scope this usually indicates that your components will live as long as your application. So scoping has no impact on the lifecycle of the object. They are built to help developers identify the lifecycle of objects. Giving your component one scope and grouping your code to reflect the scope is recommended, right? So you can have your activity uh, activity. I don't see here any like, okay, for example, I can class A here. uh, injector, scope, uh, so you also have to do the necessary imports, right, guys? Okay, we have just acted here. Yeah, you can see the activity scope here, annotation class. Okay, and so you have also sub components, as you can see here. Sub components, something that goes hand to hand with scopes is a sub component. So they allow you to organize your dependency for smaller scopes. So one common use case of Android is to create sub components for activity, and also different one for the fragment. Sub components inherit the dependencies from the parent, and they generate a new dependency graph for the scope of the sub component, right? So okay, so now finally, with the lot of theoretical part, let's go and write a simple application and integrate Dagger in this application that generates a random number when you click this button. Okay, so let's go and implement this one. So so in this application we'll have the repository and view model, obviously. So we will need to use Dagger to expose the same two dependencies like repositories. This will have the singleton scope and will be provided by application module. Now application module will be exposed as part of the application component, and also the view model provider factory. This will have the custom defined scope name like main scope, and will be provided by our main module. And okay, so let's not waste the time for the theoretical part, and let's go and check out our dependencies. If we have added the necessary dependencies for Dagger implement, Dagger 2.4.4. okay, Google Dagger compiler 2.44.4.2, right? So this is the necessary thing. Also implement your necessary other libraries like vmodel, live data, or whatever. So the main important libraries for this tutorial are vmodel, live data, and this Dagger. Okay, and also obviously the Kotlin capt plugin. Okay, and so now we need to add the like our repository. So let's create our repository. Okay, in our source code I have created a dependency injection Dagger 2. So here inside Dagger 2 I will be creating another using the repository. Number repository. So actually it's an interface. Let me just close this window and next number. Okay, then we have to implement this my next no, my number repository implementation. Okay, so here we're gonna implement our like we're gonna extend our number my repository and overriding our generate number and return the private val random number returns the random next int. Okay, okay, after this number repository implementation, okay, let's also create our view model. Private val, it has the dependency of number repository, so we need to extend the view model. Okay, private val number live data, mutable live data, of type int. Then we will have a public number live data that will be observed by the activity live data of type int. Then we will be having a number live data, so generate next number number live data post value number repository generate next number. Okay, so we have created our repository view model. Okay, so now let's move on to our creating first our application module, right? So let's create our application module. Application module. Obviously this module will be annotated with module Dagger module annotation, and it provides provide random will be a random instance. It also provides number my number repository with random, and my number repository will be my repository and random. Implementation, sorry guys. My number repository implementation. Okay, so now let's create our main module. Okay, module annotated by module Dagger module, and then it provides provide main view model factory. Actually my provide not main view model but my number view model factory with the number repository. Okay, and view model provider factory. Okay, so obviously it has to return the object of type view model factory create, and we return the number view model number repository as of generic t, right? So now let's also create our main scope. Main scope. This main scope will be consisting of it will be our annotation class actually. So scope must be documented Kotlin retention, annotate retention, runtime, and annotation class main scope. Okay. Then what we have to do is we will need our main sub component in our root package, so we'll be using the preceding scope. Let's go and create our main sub component. Sub component component, it's like an interface with the function inject main, like our activities are dagger 2 activity. Okay, so here we will be annotating with the main scope, and our it's a sub component with the modules of main module class, right? So next we will also require our application component. Main sub component, application component. Okay, so let's create our application component. Application component, which is also interface. Now obviously it's a singleton, and also obviously it's a component modules, application module class, and create a main sub component, okay. So next we need to modify the random our application, right, that we are using. Our application that we are using is main manifest. Let me see, it's a random class application, but application class, let me see. Okay, so we can reuse the same class, random application class, and add the necessary dagger. So we have our dagger, or we can create a new one, right? So let me create another new dagger app to application class. This is gonna application on create. Okay, so let's go and change it to dagger to application class. So our application class, so we need to modify it. We need to add latent val application component, which will be initialized here. Application component will be a dagger application no. Okay, but first let's go and rebuild the project. Dagger application component component application component application component. Okay, so we need to have this application component. Okay, so let's go to our create. Yeah. Okay, so what next now? We need to modify our activity, right? So Dagger 2 activity, let's go and modify the UI. So let's go and now implement, okay, the Dagger in our activity. So what we do is obviously we inject our dependency val factory it's a view model provider factory. Okay, so our application as a Dagger application class dot application component dot create main sub component and inject with this one, right? Okay, so now we need to rebuild the project again. So when you rebuild the project, the Dagger will generate the code for performing the dependency injection automatically. And we will also need to update the view like view model to view model provider, this factory get our my number view model class, then our view model number live data. We observe this this live data and update the view binding dot text view text equals to the value that we have observed, right, to string. And similarly we also need to generate the random by number by clicking the button. So button, we click the button and we will use your model generate next number. Okay, so yeah, that's it guys. So now let's run the application and see if everything is working fine. Randomize, yeah, we have the random number as you can see here, and all the dependency is all injected using Dagger. Okay, thank you guys and catch you in the next lecture. And if you have any questions, just write me the comment below. Thank you.